Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Friday morning. Actually, 4:45 this morning. And today is the 6th. Grab my glasses here. I'm getting old. Today is the 6th of October. Try to timestamp my videos so you guys can watch them in kind of like sequential order that by the date. So I thought we would kind of choose a topic of parts, and John gave me two great topic ideas. Each one of them are too big to have both of them going on in this video. So I'm going to just do the one John and the topic on parts, and then I'm going to hold off on the banking until maybe Monday or Tuesday. But what I really want to get across to you guys that are liking and subscribing and watching my videos and don't feel like you have anything to offer by commenting or you feel less than, don't. That is 180 degrees different than why I started this channel. I started this channel for you guys. And that means I want you to ask the questions. And I know with the people that I have on this channel, if I don't have the right answer, I don't know. There's guys that are in this channel, that watch this channel, that do know. And there's a wealth of information here. But don't ever feel like you don't have anything to offer, because everybody is the same here. I mean, it's kind of like getting together to have that cup of coffee in the morning at the diner, and you're all just shooting the shit, around the table waiting for your breakfast to come. That's what I want this. Informal, take your hat off, give it a toss, what have you, hair sticking out. But this is about you and I and us, and how I can help you and how you can help me. And the ways that you can help me is give me topics that you need to know more about or are unsure of or anything. Because what I find is, they say, well, you got to come up with a title first and then have a topic for it. This is what these gurus do for the channels, for YouTube. A lot of times I'm coming up to within 20 minutes before sitting down here trying to come up with an idea of where to run. And because I don't know a lot of times what I've missed. And the other thing that I like about this open dialogue and this open forum concept is that if I leave something out, I know that like Jason, Amos, there's a ton of guys in here, will step up and say something. If it's real world experience, you got Santa, you got tons of guys in here that are older, that are on this channel, that have a wealth of information that once we're gone, we're on this side of the fence instead of being in the beginning. Once I'm gone, all that information goes with me except for what I can explain on the channel for viewers to watch 3-4 years down the road. So on that note, don't ever feel less than, or don't ever feel like you don't have something to add, or you feel that what you have to add isn't worthwhile, because throw that out the window. We're at the diner, guys. All right. So the topic today is going to be on parts and in sourcing parts. And what most people don't realize is you don't deal directly with the brands, okay? Yeah, Briggs, Kohler, Compsy, Honda, John Deere is its own little unique one over here, Briggs and Stratton. They do not sell parts. All right. They have what they call preferred providers. And the best way to look at it is kind of like a pyramid, okay? You have the brand up here. Let's say Briggs. Now, in our area, Atlantic Power was the preferred provider of Briggs parts, okay? And they were given that level for all of the Northeast. So Briggs didn't deal with anybody but Atlantic Power for this area, the Northeast. And that stems from New England all the way down through to below PA, okay? And then from that point down towards the southern states, they had another one for the guys in the mid, and another one for the guys down south, and another one for the guys that are out on the West Coast. Those are the guys that handle the parts. They have the warehousing, they have the facility set up, and what most people don't realize is, now I get mailings constantly from these other people claiming to be distributors. And I guess you couldn't say in a sense they are a distributor, but they're not a distributor. In our case, I researched each one and asked about being a dealer for each one. I sent directly to the brand, and the brand sent me to their preferred provider to talk to them about becoming a dealer for them, a buyer of their parts. And a lot of times they were also responsible for warranty, schools, updates, all that stuff. But then you had some other levels below that, and I'm trying to think how to explain it. But what we ended up doing was we went to the brand. The brand told us, here's the preferred provider in the Northeast that you're going to have to talk to. Or there's like a gazillion, 100 different so-called distributors that are underneath that brand, which would be Atlantic Power, that are underneath that are selling more locally, per se. Now, there's a AKA distributor within 60 miles, 50 miles of me. And we've always bunted heads because they never had anything in stock. And they were covering a lot of the brands, the Briggs, the Kohler, the Cub Cadet. See, those guys are localized. So what they're doing is they want to get your business and then have them warehouse the parts so that you get it the same day, if not the next day. Okay? But now there's one more cut that is added on to that piece of cake. But the reason that we were bunting heads is hydro gear. We were selling a shitload of hydro gear motors. Unbelievable. I mean, you're talking 75 to 100 a month. And this local distributor caught wind and cried foul to the company that we were buying from, which was the first tier for hydro gear. And the first tier had no problems with it because we were selling more than our local distributor. And the way we were selling more is because the deal that I had with the first level guys is I knew what the shipping was going to be. They had a guaranteed contract with UPS of X number of dollars is what they were going to charge, and that's what they passed on to us. So I knew that. And I would mark up these hydro gear motors to where I was making $60-$70 a piece, even offering free shipping on eBay, Amazon, Walmart, Sears, so forth. But the biggest reason they were crying foul is because I was selling them cheaper than what they would try to sell it to me if I went through them. And they didn't like that. They didn't like that somebody in the area was competing directly against them. That always put a sour taste in my mouth. It was more like, petty stuff. And they started trying to throw their weight around. But you have to remember that I started out with a heifer barn, with Claude, with Krista, and an idea. And that idea took a while to grow. And I always tell people, the firstest with the mostest ends up cashing in. And what do I mean by that? I mean that if you can be first to the market with a new idea, new product, new way of doing things, a new way to scale up, you will end up with the most customers. Because you have very little competition in the beginning. But then after a while, everybody wants to get in. Everybody wants to do it. Because they were seeing that we were making money at it. A lot of their pitfalls is that they were still trying to get less value out of their parts. And we never sold our stuff for less value. So, for us, I wanted to deal with the first level brands. Now, there could be up to 4 or 5 different levels from there, depending upon how big an area, like the closer you are to a city. There's a lot of companies that are saying they're distributors, but they're actually just like you and I, but they're carrying enough volume, or they're saying they're carrying enough volume to where they can have the parts there the following day. Now, there are some pretty decent companies out there, and I don't know off the top of my head, because I never dealt with them, that did promise or did give you what they promised. But we were doing enough in the parts business that we had made a name for ourselves with the brands. The brands knew who we were. And the first level tier, they knew exactly who we were and what we were doing. And it didn't take long for word to travel through the industry, back to my local distributor, of what was going on with us and how we were moving a lot of product for the companies, for the brands. How would I get set up today? What I can tell you is, like, if you're in the Northeast, you have Gardner Canal. And Gardner Canal is going to be like Hydro Gear. So they basically handle Troy-built Kohler engines, Carlisle tires, Generac, Husqvarna, just to name a few. Ryobi, Homelight, along those lines. So the way I first start out is I would do my research, and that is research the brands that you want to deal with. Now, depending on how fast you want your parts will dictate how much you're going to pay for your parts. And I'm not talking shipping. I'm talking, if you're not in a super big hurry, then you can probably get the parts cheaper. But most of us, we have our customers waiting on parts, so we want to get them as quickly as possible. But I would go to, we'll use Briggs & Stratton. I would go to Briggs & Stratton website and just look up how to become a dealer for Briggs & Stratton. And then they'll ask you your location, zip code, so forth. And if you drop down, they will show their top level dealerships that handle it. And that would be power distributors that used to be Atlantic Quality or Atlantic Power. Then, and when they got bought up by Gardner Canal, or Gardner be Canal, power distributors, then it goes to a bunch more, aka warehousing distributors that are more localized to you. That's the easiest way to do it. And you may know of, like, if you're trying to get into the business of a company that's, not a whole long ways from you, depending on how close you are to the cities, and then the rural areas. I'm out in the rural areas, so 40, 50 miles isn't a big jaunt. It's a couple hour drive or an hour drive. But what I found is that a lot of people starting out have to start there because they're not doing enough volume. They haven't convinced the brands to get behind them. And then the other part to this, to getting parts, is I would highly recommend Rotary and Stens. Each one of them have got warehousing throughout the states. And with Rotary, they have like a minimum threshold order. I think it's $150 in aftermarket parts. You can mix and match however you want to, so that you don't get hit with a separate surcharge or shipping. With Stens, whether it's a $1 order or a $500 order, you're being charged a set price. And it wasn't that bad. I mean, it's not that bad. It's like $12, $13. So the heavier the order, they still held to that shipping, which was great. Now, with Stens and Rotary, they have a lot of overlap, okay? I've dealt with both. What I find is I had a better partnership with Stens because of their salesmen. And what do I mean by that? I mean that the salesman that I had would bend over backwards to try to help you out, as long as you weren't bullshitting them and you weren't, blowing smoke up their ass. That we both understood the more sales that I made, the better back end commission he made. And he was one of the first ones that believed in us when I was telling him what my plan was. And when I talk about the other dealerships down below, or the ones that they call themselves distributors or warehousing, we were doing so much business that schools would try to get accounts with Stens that I know of. And Stens had a deal with it. Unless you had a repair shop, to open to the public, they didn't want just a tax number. You had to prove that you were basically a mechanic and you had a shop, blah, blah, blah. And we had that, so that wasn't a big deal. But what he would do is, because we were doing so much volume for Stens, that the school systems that would get a hold of this sales rep for the Northeast, he would give them my contact information and say, get a hold of him. He will set you up with what you need, and we'll go from there. And what I would do is I would have Stens send a catalog right to him. Because I had that, I could send a catalog to any one of my customers. All I had to do was just send a mailing address to Stens, and Stens would send one of their catalogs out. Or it would come here and I would hand them out, one or the other. So we were acting as a distributorship as well, because of the volume and the inventory that we carried. But at the time it was nice because of the school systems. You had to wait for the money, for sometimes 3 to 4 weeks, which was fine, net 30 or what have you, depending on each one. But what I found was this, these schools would put in 2 big orders a year. And the nice thing with Stens was, if it was a $3,000 to $4,000 order, it didn't cost me any more to ship that than it did a $10 part to somebody else or me. So we played the local dealer slash distributor slash, because we were doing so much volume. So I would highly recommend both of those aftermarket companies. Look them over. Pretty straightforward. And while I'm on this subject, every top level and mid level and so forth have more than just one price per se. It depends upon the volume of business that you're doing with that company. And the more you buy, the higher levels that you can climb and get reduced rates. And we at Stens and the other one were at distributor level. We were at top level getting the best discount on the parts because we were buying so much volume. So 2 dealers can have 2 different accounts depending upon how much they're selling per month, per year. And if they're selling a lot of parts per year, this one may be getting it cheaper than this one from the same distributor. Hope you understand that too. Now, when it comes to like John Deere parts, good luck on that. As far as if you can find some aftermarkets and stuff. But when it comes to OEM, technically nobody is supposed to be selling OEM John Deere parts online. Probably didn't know that, did you? Because they didn't want their brand. The Steel's another one. They don't want their brand tarnished by, they don't want to take away from their local dealers. They know that their local dealers are their bread and butter, that are doing floor planning and getting set up. But I had a partnership with our local John Deere dealership. And the boys that end up taking it over, I grew up with these guys, so it wasn't a hard partnership to develop. And the deal is basically, if I needed any John Deere parts, they would give it to me at a reduced cost, and I could make a few pennies on the deal. But on the flip side, they didn't want to carry a lot of Briggs parts and all the other stuff, even though they had Briggs engines, blah, 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 right? But they knew we carried them. And they would call over and talk with one of us, whether it was Krista or me, and say, we need these parts. Then we go right down through. And 99.9% of the time, we had them right here. So we'd either run it down to them, or they would send somebody up to us. And we even had cases where they had a customer that wanted an air filter and they didn't have one in stock. Could they send that customer to deal with us? And I say, let's do it this way. It's your customer. Bill them right there and just tell them that they can either come here and pick it up, or we can meet them towards halfway between there and their home, so they weren't going way out of their way. And then divvy up at the end of the day, give us what you normally give us. And that way we weren't trying to steal deal. They knew we weren't trying to steal their customers, is what I'm trying to say. We worked as a partnership. And that's why I say it's so important to develop partnerships with other shops, with inventory, because something you may need probably sitting on their shelf, and something they need could be sitting on your shelf. And if you guys work together, then you're going to sell more parts, and you're going to have happier customers. All right? So to answer your question, John, you can't deal directly with the brands. They have big distributors that warehouse for them. And from there, it's like a triangle. You have the brand here, then you have their big distributors, and then you have a bunch of smaller distributors in warehousing, and then you have the local distributors that don't usually carry a lot of warehousing. And good chances are, if you want OEM, you're going to have to deal with one of the local distributors. Because if you're first starting out, or even if you're in the business for a while, doing repairs per se, you're not going to do enough volume to where you're above the bottom tier is going to want to deal with you, or think it's worthwhile to deal with you. Now, with us, with, let's say, Briggs, we were doing $40,000 a month for them. So we were a recognized number. I mean, that we were doing more volume than the bottom two tiers of their warehousers, the distributors. So we got preferential treatment, per se, because we were a known and we were a given that we were selling X number of parts per year for that brand. So for most of the time that we were selling, we were dealing with the top level brand, the top level distributorship that handled for the Briggs brand. Your aftermarket companies, they don't care whether you're doing $100 a month in sales or $100,000 a month. Salesmen are going to try to want the people that have higher sales rates, which means a higher back-end commission for them. But I would recommend that anyone that's interested in, carrying the OEMs, to research the brands and understand the brands and find where you can get the best price. And most of us that are dealing with the brands, let's say Briggs, we want to do warranty work for them, right? We don't only want to get their parts, but we'd also like to be able to become a warranty shop. Okay, that's another whole new ball game that you have to not just simply get an account set up and show your tax ID and so forth, business name and all that, but in order to become a warranty shop with them, you have to. They have schools, trade schools, on keeping you updated. Kohler has them, Briggs has them, And the nice thing is, when we first started out, a lot of it you had to physically go to like Albany, which was like for us almost a 5-hour drive, and then spend all day at a trade school learning how to troubleshoot engines and this and that. Now they have most of it online, where you log into your account and click on the warranty thing and watch their tech explain the new stuff that's on the market, etc., etc. In order to get the warranty work for the shop. So again, if I were just starting out, I would try to get hooked up with Stens and Rotary, and I would also try to get hooked up with distributors that are handling the OEM, and ask for catalogs to be sent if you still are the old school with catalogs. For me, we don't use catalogs. Most of these companies, Rotary and Stens, they have a lot of wealth in their websites. I mean, if you log into your account, you can bring up anything. And when it comes to Briggs, Kohler and all them, they also have, if you're a dealer for them, then you have access to the parts diagrams and to look up the exact parts that you need based on the model number. But in this day and age, all the diagrams are up there for anybody, honestly. I mean, you can take and go to Google and punch in the model number of a Husqvarna riding lawnmower, per se, and it's going to bring you up with folks that have their own online website for parts, e-replacement, Jack Small Engine, all these guys. And they're posting their parts, their diagrams and parts lookups right there for you. And then all you have to do is just take and copy the part number, put it on your order to go in for whichever one that you're doing, and then easy peasy. Now, what I know that most of the shops do, and that's fine if it works for you, but they'll usually have a running tab for the week. And what do I mean by that? I mean, customers come in, they want to order parts, so you have a notebook, and you write the customer's name and the part that they want. And at the end of the week, the idea is you hope that you have enough in parts to at least cover the shipping of that order to come in. And then the following week, you divvy up all the parts. You call these people and say their parts are in. If your customers are willing to wait, that works great. If they're not willing to wait, one other option you can do with them is say, I can get this here probably tomorrow night, but it's going to be an added surcharge for the shipping. You're going to be required to cover the cost of the parts, but also the shipping as well. Whereas if you waited until the end of the week, a lot of times the shop owner would cover the shipping because they had a bigger order. So on that note, you guys have a great Friday. Have a great weekend. Not sure what I got going on this weekend. Per se, hunting season's in, but it's been so hot. It's supposed to start raining tonight. So if it's going to be a rainy, damp weekend, I'm going to see if I can't knock out a few how-tos. And other than that, you guys have a great day. Thanks so much for watching. John, thanks for the topics. And we'll cover the business part of it and the banking next. All right. See you later.